All right, week 2. Today we went to a new church and it was actually fantastic. We walked into the service, mostly filled with old people, because we attended the traditional rather than contemporary service. And the thing that instantly made me like this church is they had a technical difficulty where the words were not on the screen and the leaders just started singing. Everyone just kind of like looked at each other like, well, we can't really sing along. And the leaders realized and they stopped the song and everyone just kind of like laughed it off as the technical difficulties worked out. And then they started up again. And I thought that was really cool because it didn't feel like a performance. It was more like a community getting together to worship God. And I thought that was really just awesome. I then turned on my super extroverted mode and talked with the pastor a bit, as well as some random males hanging around, and I got to know some people. Then the pastor brought over his son, Reese. That's how I'm going to spell it, because I actually know how it's spelled. Because he's studying a bit of philosophy, and we connected over that. It was really cool. I also met this guy named Steven, who's just a copy of Sean from Agatha Christie. It's like creepy, the resemblance. Like the exact same haircut, same facial structure, and the mannerisms are like a carbon copy. It's actually uncanny. But yeah, that was cool. We got to meet some more of the leadership because we helped with cleaning up, and that was good too. Joe talked with some old people, as did Owen did well, and Karina talked with some other young woman. And there was some significant talking to strangers that occurred for those pursuing that goal. After church, I worked on planning next week for the next 2.5 hours. Unfortunately, jet skis are not only stupidly expensive, but require like 2 separate licenses to actually, drive. So I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, some fun things are happening soon. And I really want to do this cave tour, but we'll see. Other than that, we played some volleyball, which was decent. And then when we got home, we watched A Silent Voice. And that movie is actually so good. Also, because I'm working on trying to feel things, I tried to cry during that movie, and I actually couldn't. Like, I thought if I really tried, I could, but I actually couldn't. And given the godlike perfection of that movie, the fact that I didn't is... Oh, and that definitely sufficiently emotional to make someone cry. I think that, I need to work on some stuff. But yeah, I guess I can't say I've cried to a movie yet. And yeah, that's what happened today. This morning, I went on a run with Noah, the next morning that is, and had an absolutely horrible time, hence I shall not share it. But it was still good. I'll probably try and do that run later, but faster. After that, we had quiet time, and all made brunch. And after readjusting a schedule, it's a bit of a stretch to call it breakfast, because, it was kind of late. But yeah, we just killed time for a bit and waited to leave for the escape room, one of the planned activities for the day. And then nothing much happened. After we got on the road, Noah got a bit turned around, thanks in good part to my poor navigator skills, but we made it in time. The place was pretty darn cool, honestly. Nice and creepy, mad scientist vibe. But yeah, we got in the escape room, and I chose the one that wasn't horror zombie themed, because I'm not into that. And it was pretty darn cool. I've never been in an escape room before, but this one had like a ton of like themed props in a secret room, and it was really awesome. We got one hint, but otherwise nothing from the game master, and we actually ended up solving the room in like 3 minutes before our clock ran out. Yay! After that, we had costumes, so we got our picture taken, and then we head down to Sacramento to, hypothetically, ride bird scooters. However, unbeknownst to me, those scooters actually require you to scan your license to use them, and since 2 of the group left their wallets at home, we couldn't actually ride them as a group activity, which was sad. Instead, we tried to go to a smoothie place, but I actually mapped us to a smooth street instead of a smoothie street, so that was pretty great. And then we just ended up going in a circle and finding some Jamba Juice. Interestingly, the big city made Karina and Joe pretty uncomfortable, which I didn't see coming. I mean, personally, I don't mind the homeless people or the interesting characters. I like it a lot more than the monotony of clones in Fort Collins. But yeah, as a result, they didn't really want to explode, which was really sad. Regardless, the movies were pretty good, and we did get to see the city a little bit, so that worked out. We then stopped in a very large, fancy Catholic church, but it was closed, so that was maximal sad. And we also stopped... then we stopped at In-N-Out before heading home. However, our journey... In-N-Out. Oh, our journey to In-N-Out, I see. As well as just around the city with Noah piloting our car was a little less than ideal. We actually had a cop flag us down and be like, do you know where you're going? Because Noah was obviously having a very hard time navigating. And apparently it was that obvious that the cop was like, you shouldn't be driving. But yeah, aside from that trauma that Joe might have gotten, we all made it out unscathed. Once we got home, Joe and Karina were quite tired as they stayed up talking the previous night till like 4 or something in the morning. And then they went to bed early. I played table tennis with Noah for like 2 hours, and we talked about some stuff, and that was good. And yeah, after that, I kind of went to sleep. 6:01. Not 01, just 6:1. Today we had our standing morning routine, except earlier, and without the exercise part, because we didn't have time. We then went to the hair salon and alternately entertained ourselves while our hair got cut or dyed. I got through the rest of Doug's book about Catholic conversion stories. That was interesting. I also got my hair cut, which I think worked out decently. I'm mostly looking forward to just not having to do as much since it grows out. And supposedly the haircut I got should like morph styles as it gets longer. Hopefully. But yeah, Joe was the only one who's not so sure about what he did with his hair, but the rest of us are pretty satisfied. After we got back, we spent a bit of time researching how to do the little things in life best, which I must not have explained clearly because Caleb, Joe, and Karina were all very confused. Nevertheless, they all enacted some interpretation of the task and gained some pseudo-valuable knowledge, I think. I then read some more of my book, wrote in my journal some, and then had dinner, which I helped Noah make, and it was pretty good. Got to play some table tennis with Caleb, and toward the end, we started trying to see how many volleys we get in a minute, and we got just over 50, so 100 hits. Surprisingly challenging, actually. After that, Caleb and I came back inside, and some questions from the question box were asked, and we did recaps. After that, I, feeling some emotional turmoil, which is a new experience for me, decided to go on a walk, and since the moon wasn't out, the stars were actually fantastic. Thus, once I made it around the loop, I proposed the idea to the rest of the people to go look outside, but Joe was not really interested in coming, and Caleb walked ahead of me, and it was great. I don't think that's actually what I said. Oh well. So, it was the first time that I've been on the talking as opposed to listening end of emotional conversation. I actually really appreciated having Joe there, even if he didn't know how to rationally fix the problem I was having. Oh no, it was actually Caleb. Caleb was there with me, right. But yeah, after doing 2 laps with Caleb, I decided to go on a much longer walk to get things out of my system, and it was effective. I walked only around like 3 miles. Actually, the same route I ran earlier, but it took ages because walking is slow. But still, it was good. And yep, when I got back, I wrote this. So there's the tale. 6:02. Well, I didn't write this day up, but all good. Yesterday we worked out, but really it turned into a bit like a tiny abs and a robust benching competition between Caleb, Joe, and me. Unfortunately, Joe's previous PR, something like 185, was not even close to his current level of strength, so we actually destroyed Caleb and I with a 225 bench. That man has like the bolts of Thor running through his muscular veins. But yeah, thinking Joe could only reach 185, I got to 180, and Caleb, after a few tries, did indeed beat me with a 185 bench press. But I blame being exhausted. I'll beat him the next time. So that was good. After that, we drove down Grass Valley to compliment strangers, but per my poor discretion, I led the squad into a Christian Science reading room, not anticipating there would be a person lying in wait for us, and hence we became ensnared in a lengthy and largely pointless conversation wherein we, at very least originally, genuinely tried to understand her claims and answer, her answers to our questions. But it quickly became evident that she wasn't equipped to deal with the fairly blatantly obvious contradictions between her compartmentalized, firmly held doctrines. So yeah, the conversation definitely degraded, but we also couldn't find a socially polite way to escape, because she's very good at rambling. So, trapped is really a good way to describe our situation. Nevertheless, we did prevail and escape her clutches, and then spent 30 minutes splitting up and complimenting random strangers we met on the street. This black guy just yelled across the street, "You're gonna make it through the day!" And I yelled back, "You too, man!" And just kept walking. And it was actually great. That guy was my favorite. After that, we all got ice cream / sorbet, and then everyone watched for a while. People watched for a while. We got to witness the inner life of some middle school kids, and were deeply blessed by the experience. After that, we went home, kind of chilled, ate some gloriously breaded chicken created by the glorious Noah, did some questions from the box, and tried to do a little more shuffle dancing, which went poorly, as I just cannot pick up on dance moves quickly, and the new moves we tried to learn were either too hard or the guys went too fast, even for Karina. After that, we transitioned to trying to learn some swing dancing, which everyone else had a blast with, but I felt really uncomfortable, personally, being that close to Karina, so I opt out. It's not like I'm in the girlfriend market, though, so I figure I'm not really missing out on learning how to swing dance. But yeah, the whole experience elicited a very strong emotional reaction from me, and that caught me off guard. So frankly, I haven't really done emotions for the last 3 years, and I actually have no idea how to handle them. But in pursuit of becoming better and a more healthy human, I didn't shut said emotions out, and I tried to work through things, eventually with the aid of Joe. And yeah, that was a very novel and horrible experience, and feelings are possibly one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I hate it to the nth degree. But here I am, not dead yet, striving to be a better person, so woo, go me. And yeah, that's basically what happened yesterday, and today is a new day. 6:02. The day started off with quiet time, and then I tried harder on the run I did 2 days ago, and made a much better time by like 2 minutes. That was cool. I actually felt so much harder, though. I then caught up on Paul and the Gift, as per Noah in my reading plan, which was good, and I kind of wanted to be with people toward the end. So I came downstairs, and Karina was calling her family. I stuck around the area and listened to the conversation. Joe and Karina had a good time, I think, but Caleb and I were a bit bored as not much was being said. We then decided to leave a bit early so we have time to learn how to backflip. Joe and Karina had this like dance move they were mastering that was pretty challenging. They were trying to work on. And so I mustered up the courage to do a backflip. That's just separate. I mustered up the courage to do a backflip, but my technique sucked until the very end. And even then, at the very end, I couldn't quite get it. And Joe kept making sure I didn't die. Caleb basically got it, but he knew I backflipped previously, so I'm not sure how much praise he deserves. Anyway, the point is, I tried, even if I didn't succeed. And Joe is actually great at backflips. The hops is what he's got. But yeah, we then took Caleb and Karina to the airport because they had to fly home for a wedding thing. Joe and Noah talked some on the way back, and we stopped at the house and ate something, and then head off to the first young adults night. I had to kind of hype myself up for once, and I did really well, actually. Joe and Noah did spectacular on the social things. They both talked to a ton of people, and some people of the other gender in particular, so that was impressive. I also got to talk to a lot of people, but the best conversation by far was this one guy named Reese. I talked to him about totemism and how it deals with like a bunch of problems. I thought it went really well, and I hope he thought so too. But yeah, that's how it went, and we went home. Well, next day. 6/5. Well, I didn't write these the day after for like 2 days, so we're just going to write them all down today. I think the third was Friday. That day we had our typical quiet time deal, which was good. And then Noah and I went to the gym without Joe and did some arm stuff. After that we went bowling, where the goal was to get exactly 100 without going over, which was surprisingly more challenging than you might think. At the very end, I accidentally got a strike and knocked down 101, so that super sucked. The first time I've been sad to get a strike on accident. And Noah also went over, so Joe won by default. I mean, for reals, because he could have gutterballed both, but he didn't try. So you know, he wanted to just play it safe and just win. Up until this point, both Joe and I have been having a bit of a bad day, so both of us made a deliberate effort to try and reform our mood, and we kind of helped each other out with out of our respective funks. Again, having emotions is weirding me out. But yeah, we turned things around, and then the bowling glitched out, so it scored the pins you bowled to the next person instead of yourself. So that made it much more interesting and kind of more fun. We played like that for a while, and I think Joe won. And we played one final game we technically didn't finish, but I totally won. After that, we, meaning Noah, Joe, and I, did the next activity that was to take an opinionated topic we disagreed on, namely gun control stuff, and research and debate it until we reached an agreement. Basically, we had a 30-minute research session and then a discussion period, and just repeat that cycle until all three of us reached consensus. And we couldn't leave until we did. It started off like most debates, but since we had to reach a consensus to make it the end, it became a lot less like an argument, a lot more like a conversation by the time that the research wore on. It was actually a really cool experience. I actually recommend everyone do this at some point because it's just a better conversation experience. It helps you get past your emotional biases and really hear each other out. It's because, you kind of have to end the conversation. Once that was done, we did some baking, which I thought was novel for Noah and Joe, but it turns out Noah has done quite a bit. So it was a really only novel for me and Joe. But still, it was good. We made this New Zealand brownie cookie thing that Grace sent me, and it turned out really well, especially since it was us making it. Finally, after that, we watched this really realistic but consequently really boring war movie about this guy who defuses bombs. And that was how the day ended. We basically forgot to do a recap since we were all pretty tired, so that was a bit sad. The next morning, Noah and I discussed Paul and the Gift, a super influential biblical studies book that we decided to work on while we're here, and that was good. Barclay is pretty darn smart. The first activity of the day was to play this old medieval logic game called Obligations, and basically the rules of the game are you must affirm everything you know to be true and deny everything you know to be false, unless a statement directly follows from the postulate. If that's the case, you must prioritize consistency over ordinary truth, and you win by making someone explicitly contradict themselves or contradict the postulate. So, for instance, when Noah was trying to trap Joe, the postulate Joe had to affirm was, I am a duck. Thus, in subsequent questioning, Joe had to affirm everything that is true, unless it was the case he needed to affirm something that was incompatible with the proposition, I am a duck. Basically, the game is one of logical maneuvering, manipulation, and precision. A battle of minds, if you will. And it was actually surprisingly fun. I'm pretty sure we did it a bit differently than medievals did, but it was still really fun. And Joe got so many things, got out of so many things by pointing out ambiguities in our attempted traps. Noah got so annoyed because kept being like, what I meant was, and I, as the judge for a round, kept being like, but what you actually said was, and it was great. I also got Noah in 3 lines, and so that was also fantastic. After that, we were going to go kayaking, but the lake was infested with E. coli, so we probably decided not to do that. Instead, we decided it would be good to do a puzzle, because if we're going to do a puzzle, we need to do it without the Myers, since their family is super into that, and gosh, it is no exaggeration to say that they're puzzle gods. As I write this, Caleb and Korea just got back and have started finishing the puzzle the three of us spent actually 8 hours working on, and as soon as Caleb arrives, he just looks down and grabs a piece and places it first try. And I literally spent 10 minutes solely looking for that exact piece. Gosh, and Korea's also a goddess. She put 3 pieces together in the first, 10 seconds after she sat down. I actually don't understand. Both Joe and I tried so hard, but puzzle solving must be like a divine gift from the grace of God that just, he just deemed us unfit to receive. Anyway, so we started on that and basically worked on that puzzle with a single hour-long magic break till midnight. I think I can now officially conclude I don't like puzzles. But I don't necessarily regret the decision, as I do think I learned something in terms of the painstaking difference between patience and perseverance. So yeah, I did that, and then we ran out that night with a walk around the loop. I walked backward the whole way because I wanted to, and we did a recap as we walked, and it was good. I also talked some things out with Joe, and that went pretty well. And there you go. That is week 2.